keeping that lean muscle mass. And protein's also really, important at any age really, but especially when you're 40s, 50s. Protein is so important. That's why, Nicole, this morning you and I,
Yes. Yes,
we're
ma'am.
talking about that protein,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. I'm hanging my head. Yes, ma'am. I had no protein this morning. None.
Yes, yeah, so important.
And I know as we wind down, I love the image of the brain and what is happening with our brain and how it's affecting our memory. And it speaks to me more. And I tell you guys, go and join Trudy's newsletter, her YouTube, because even when you think of a lot of women going through menopause and premenopause and how food affects that, and the conversations are starting to happen more. And you mentioned the fact about the vitamins and how it affects stress. That was so good. And magnesium.
Hey, it's Neecee, Lexy, lighting up the screen. Digital magic like you've never seen. From the stage to the mic, she's bringing the heat. With celebs and biz minds, it's always a treat. She's a boss, she's a vibe, watch her come alive. With awards on the shelf, yeah, she's on the rise. Social waves, making plays all day and night. Neecee, Lexy in the spotlight, shining so bright. From marketing dreams to the YouTube flow, live interviews with stars, every post, every show, she's changing the game. Neecee, Lexy, yeah, remember the name.
Say for men and women it's different. So what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting, as well as what are some veggies and fruits you recommend for eating daily?
So my thoughts on intermittent fasting, it just depends on what your goal is. If you're trying to lose weight, I would say try it, try it and see if that's something that works for you. And don't be rigid about it. There's different ways you can fast, right? You can do like a 10-hour fast, a 14-hour fast. I feel like the easiest one to start with is like a 12-hour fast. So if you stop eating your dinner, let's say at 7 o'clock, and then maybe you start again like the next day at 7 a.m., right? I feel like if you're going to get started, that's probably the easiest place to start if you're going to do it. In terms of what are some fruits and veggies I recommend eating, I would say like cruciferous vegetables. So those are like your cauliflower, your broccoli, your bok choy, things like that.
And someone is asking about,
leafy greens. Sorry, I can't forget about leafy greens, right?
The leafy greens. Any exercises you incorporate in particular with your regime that you do in particular?
Oh, great question, Z. I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, strength training. Especially now in my 40s, like strength training is so important. And that's the thing, like as you age, you have to make sure that your diet and your exercise, grow with you, right? So in my 40s now, like before when I was younger, I was all about that cardio, right? But now in my 40s, I'm about the strength training because we lose muscle mass as we age. So it's so important to do that strength training to make sure that we're keeping that lean muscle mass. And protein's also really, important at any age really, but especially when you're 40s, 50s, protein is so important. That's why, Nicole, this morning you and I,
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
talking about that protein,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. I'm hanging my head. Yes, ma'am. I had no protein this morning. None.
Yes, yeah, so important.
And I know as we wind down, I love the image of the brain and what is happening with our brain and how it's affecting our memory. And it speaks to me more. And I tell you guys, go and join Trudy's newsletter, her YouTube, because even when you think of a lot of women going through menopause and premenopause and how food affects that, and the conversations are starting to happen more. And you mentioned the fact about the vitamins and how it affects stress. That was so good. And magnesium. And what happens to when you're stressed, what happens to vitamins is like that was a bing moment. That was a bing moment. You dropped so many nuggets, Trudy. And guys, listen, you got to hear the phenomenal Trudy Stone here this morning with her infinite wisdom. And thank you for sharing your truth. And thank you for being so vulnerable and transparent with us. Many great comments in the chat. Say it again for the people in the back.
Yeah, and I want to say this, like as a nutritionist, and a lot of people don't really admit this, but even as a nutritionist, a wellness expert, hey, I struggle sometimes with my health too. I struggle with staying on track too, right? So I need to make sure that I'm putting things in place to make sure things happen, like meal prep. If I showed you my calendar right now, meal prep is on my calendar every single Sunday, right? So every single Sunday at like 3:30, I'm doing my meal prep. I'm putting on my soca. I love soca music, guys. I
I
put on
know.
my soca music, or I put on my old school hip hop,
Yeah,
R&B,
yeah.
and I make it a party. And I make sure that I
Right.
have fun with it, right?
Yeah.
You have to enjoy the process of taking care of yourself, because if you think of it as torture, that's what your experience is going to be.
Yes, yes. That is so key. And so what I'm going to encourage Trudy to do is go into the chat, see some of the comments. I think there are a couple of comments in the chat that didn't come into the Q&A, but she might be able to answer some of those. We're going to take like a 1.2 minute break so you can stress, because it's important that we get up from now. I am not getting up because I'm intently listening. You might be doing exactly what I'm doing, and you're writing and you're typing, but we want you to intentionally move your bodies and take a breath and get something to drink. You have it's like a commercial break. Well, it's 2.2 on TV. So you're going to have an actual commercial break, and we're coming back with Coach Lovemore. I'm going to be interviewing Coach.
Living out a dream. Neecee, Lexy, always on the scene. So hit that subscribe, stay along for the ride with Neecee, Lexy. The hustle's worldwide.